Chapter 7, Cults and Coercive Control. 7.1 Characteristics of Cultic Organizations. Cultic organizations often display a distinct set of characteristics that differentiate them from more benign groups or communities. These distinctive features are not only integral to the group's identity, but also vital to the methods of control and persuasion that they employ. Understanding these characteristics allows one to identify potentially harmful organizations and protect oneself from their influence. A primary characteristic of cultic organizations is the presence of a charismatic leader. This individual is typically at the center of the organization and is often regarded with unquestioning reverence by the group's members. The leader's charismatic authority facilitates an emotional bond between themselves and their followers, which is often leveraged to establish and maintain control over group members' behavior, thoughts, and emotions. Another common trait is the group's systemic use of manipulation to recruit and retain members. New recruits are often targeted for their vulnerability and offered an instant sense of community and purpose. Manipulation tactics may include love bombing, where new and potential members are showered with attention and affection, fear-mongering, which exploits their anxieties, and deceptive promises of self-improvement or spiritual growth. Cults frequently exhibit an us versus them mentality, drawing sharp distinctions between members and outsiders. This worldview serves to enhance group cohesion and loyalty while justifying and intensifying control over members. By constructing a perceived threat from the outside world, the organization motivates members to cling to the group for protection and to avoid contact with non-members who may challenge the group's beliefs. Cultic organizations often have an exclusive belief system that claims to possess the ultimate truth. Questioning or dissenting from the group doctrine is usually discouraged or punished. Consequently, this exclusive belief system can foster an environment where critical thinking is suppressed and blind obedience to group doctrine is enforced. Control of information is also a pivotal method employed by cultic groups. Members may be isolated from external sources of information, especially those critical of the group. The restriction of information includes controlling members' access to the internet, academic resources, alternative viewpoints, and contact with former members who may provide differing perspectives. Control over individual behavior is another defining characteristic. This can manifest in prescribing strict daily routines, communal living arrangements, and demands for participation in group activities. Members who fail to comply with these requirements often face sanctions, which may include public shaming, alienation, or other punitive measures. Financial exploitation is frequently observed within cultic organizations. Members are often encouraged or required to donate a significant portion of their income or assets to the group. This can lead to economic dependency on the organization, which serves to further entrench members within the group and make it difficult for them to leave. An emphasis on elite status is a tactic used to foster a sense of superiority among members. The belief that they are part of a select group that is more enlightened or morally superior to the rest of society can be a compelling force that reinforces the group's control over its members. Cultic organizations often employ emotional control and dependency. Members may become emotionally reliant on the group and its leader for validation, guidance, and a sense of worth. This dependence is often cultivated through intense communal experiences, emotional highs and lows, and the promise of unconditional acceptance within the group. Lastly, the end justifies the means. Cultic groups often prioritize their perceived mission over the welfare of individual members. This can lead to justifying harm done to members, whether emotional, physical, or psychological, as necessary sacrifices for the greater good of the group's goals. The organization's objectives are advanced as being of paramount importance, which often leads to the subjugation and exploitation of its members. Cultic organizations display a pattern of coercive control, manipulative behaviors, and isolation tactics that can have deleterious effects on their members. Recognizing these characteristics is crucial for individuals to identify such organizations and for society to understand and address the harms they cause. 7.2 The process of indoctrination and brainwashing. Indoctrination and brainwashing are terms often associated with cults and coercive control. These processes refer to the methods and techniques used to change individuals' beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors without their willing consent. In many cases, indoctrination is a systematic procedure undertaken by a group with the intention of deeply embedding a set of ideologies or principles in the individual. In cultic environments, this generally involves a combination of psychological manipulations, social pressure, and a carefully curated belief system. Cults commonly implement indoctrination through a gradual process that initiates with benign interaction. New members are typically greeted with warmth and friendship, creating an environment that feels safe and welcoming. This stage is frequently referred to as love bombing, where potential members are showered with attention and praise. This social reinforcement serves as a potent tool, influencing individuals' need for belonging and acceptance. As a result, a strong emotional connection is established, which creates an opening for further manipulative tactics. Once a person becomes more invested in the community, the indoctrination process intensifies. Cult leaders often start introducing the group's doctrines in a manner that challenges existing belief systems. They employ thought reform methods that can include repetitive teaching sessions, which instill the group's perspective as the sole truth. The leaders often claim having exclusive access to higher knowledge or a unique path to personal improvement, which can appeal to individuals seeking purpose and direction. This creates a compelling narrative that discourages questioning and promotes conformity. During indoctrination, critical thinking and skepticism are systematically undermined. Individuals may be discouraged from accessing external information sources that could contradict the group's teachings. Members are often kept busy with a rigorous schedule of activities, meetings, and rituals that further immerse them in the group's culture and beliefs. This can lead to informational isolation, where group members lack the necessary context to critically assess the teachings they receive. Consequently, the group's ideology becomes the primary lens through which members view the world. The cult environment often reinforces the indoctrinated beliefs through a structured system of rewards and punishments. Compliance with the group's expectations and teachings can lead to increased status, responsibilities, or other benefits. Conversely, questioning or deviating from the norms can result in various forms of punishment, including social ostracism, public shaming, or more severe consequences. Such a system promotes adherence to the group's ideology and suppresses dissent, as members learn to associate conformity with positive outcomes. Emotional control is a significant aspect of indoctrination. Cult leaders may manipulate members' emotions to maintain a hold over the group. Fear is frequently employed to ensure obedience. Members might be warned about the dangers of the outside world, including persecution or spiritual peril, which can foster a dependency on the cult. At the same time, positive emotions like love and acceptance are often conditional and linked to the person's compliance with the group's teachings, further entrenching their loyalty. Peer pressure is another powerful tool used in the process of indoctrination. Cult members often reinforce the group's belief system among themselves. This collective reinforcement serves to normalize the group's ideology and practices. As individuals witness their peers following the same teachings and displaying loyalty to the group, they are more likely to model similar behavior to fit in and avoid being the outlier. This social conformity serves to strengthen the indoctrinated beliefs within the group's social structure. Isolation from previous social networks also plays a role in the indoctrination process. As individuals become enmeshed in the cult's lifestyle, they often drift away from family and friends who do not share the same beliefs. This separation can lead to a weakening of outside influences and previous support systems. Isolation can make the individual more susceptible to the cult's control and increase their reliance on the group for social interaction and a sense of identity. The indoctrination process also typically involves some form of ritual or practice that serves to solidify the group's beliefs. This can take the form of daily affirmations, group worship, or specific behaviors that are ritualized. Through repetition of these rituals, the beliefs and values of the cult become deeply ingrained in the individual's daily life. The constant reinforcement through ritual serves to normalize the cult's belief system and makes it a central part of the member's identity. Indoctrination and brainwashing are typically sustained through an illusion of consensus. Cult leaders may present the group's ideology as universally accepted within the group, concealing any dissent or disagreement. This perception of unanimous agreement can significantly influence individuals, as it suggests that any doubts they may have are unfounded or unusual. As a result, members may suppress their own doubts to avoid feeling alienated or being perceived as flawed by the group. Finally, the process of indoctrination is maintained through ongoing influence and reinforcement. Cult leaders often continuously seek ways to deepen members' commitment to the group's beliefs and practices. This can include establishing layers of doctrine, revelations, or insights that members can aspire to understand or achieve. By constantly evolving the belief system, members remain engaged, continually seeking to deepen their understanding and satisfy the desire for progression within the group. This ongoing pursuit reinforces the indoctrination, making it increasingly difficult for members to extricate themselves from the group's influence. Understanding the mechanism of indoctrination and brainwashing within cults is crucial for both preventing individuals from being ensnared and assisting those who seek to leave such environments. By recognizing the methods used to exert coercive control, it becomes possible to develop strategies to counteract these influences and promote authentic personal freedom. It is through this understanding that society can better protect and empower individuals against the deceptive and manipulative tactics of cults. 7.3. Psychological control and thought reform. In the realm of cults, psychological control represents a fundamental mechanism through which leaders exert influence over their followers, often aiming to reshape followers' beliefs, identities, and emotions to align with the group's ideologies. This chapter delves into the intricacies of thought reform, a process commonly associated with the systematic application of psychological influence techniques by cults. Thought reform, sometimes interchangeably used with the term brainwashing, comprises a range of strategies designed to destabilize individuals' sense of self and induce profound changes in their beliefs and behaviors. One of the initial stages in thought reform involves the creation of a controlled environment. Leaders of cult-like groups often seek to limit members' contact with the outside world, thereby reducing exposure to alternative perspectives and information that might contradict the cult's teachings. By restricting communication, monitoring relationships, and often dictating the physical and social parameters within which members operate, the group establishes a reality where the cult's doctrine becomes the primary, if not exclusive, point of reference. The second stage centers on the cultivation of dependency. Cults typically foster an intense emotional reliance on the group by emphasizing the special nature of the community, the uniqueness of its beliefs, and the importance of its mission. This is frequently accompanied by the offering of unconditional acceptance and attention, at least initially, which creates a strong bond between the member and the group. As this dependency deepens, the individual's ability to make independent judgments diminishes, rendering them more susceptible to manipulation. Deceptive practices are often employed to disorient and confuse members, a tactic that serves to facilitate psychological control. Inconsistencies in doctrine or behavior by leadership are routinely rationalized or dismissed. Members may be encouraged to suppress doubt and to interpret uncertainty as a personal failing, something to be eradicated through deeper commitment to the group's practices. A state of cognitive dissonance is induced, with the cult environment structured to provide the only apparent resolution. Cults are known to apply intense pressures that can destabilize a person's identity through a process coined identity stripping. It involves challenging and breaking down an individual's existing belief system, life history, and sense of self. Rituals, criticism, and confessions are strategies to dismantle a member's past identity and imbue them with a new identity, aligned with the cult's ideology and the leader's dictates. This reconstructed identity is often reinforced by a new name, language patterns, and roles within the group, concretizing the transformation. Peer pressure and communal reinforcement play significant roles in sustaining psychological control within cults. Through communal living or frequent meetings, the influence of the collective group dynamics may normalize and reinforce the cult's ethos. Individual members are surrounded by an echo chamber that reverberates with the group's ideology, reducing the likelihood of dissenting views emerging. The social fabric of the cult functions to constantly validate the prescribed beliefs and behaviors. The practice of confession is a common method used within cults to establish psychological dominance. Members are often encouraged or forced to divulge personal information, past transgressions, and innermost fears to the group or its leader. This act serves multiple functions. It creates a sense of vulnerability and exposure, reinforces the power hierarchy between the leadership and the member, and can be used later to shame or control the individual. By leveraging private information, the leadership can maintain a tight grip on members' loyalty and obedience. Thought reform also includes the systematic application of reward and punishment to shape behavior and beliefs. Positive reinforcement is used to applaud conformity to the cult's expectations, while nonconformity is met with a range of punitive measures from social isolation to physical reprimands. This operant conditioning serves to gradually align members' actions with the cult's desired outcomes, while instilling fear about the consequences of defiance. Another feature of psychological control is the manipulation of language to constrict critical thinking. Cults frequently develop a specialized lexicon that includes loaded language, buzzwords, and thought-terminating clichés. These linguistic tools serve to simplify complex issues into binary oppositions aligned with the cult's agenda and inhibit deeper analysis or criticism. Over time, members may find it increasingly challenging to articulate or even conceive of a dissent frame of reference. Psychological control in cults is often sustained through a constructed narrative that portrays the outside world as profoundly threatening, corrupt, or inimical to the group's survival and mission. This binary worldview amplifies the us versus them mentality, fortifying group cohesion and loyalty. The fear of external adversaries galvanizes the group internally, as members increasingly perceive their affiliation with the cult as a matter of existential import. Lastly, thought reform typically exploits emotional triggers and stress to induce compliance and capitulation. Methods such as sleep deprivation, overwork, and induced crises create an atmosphere of continual strain, making members more pliable to suggestion and control. Emotional highs and lows are engineered to break down resistance and instill an unwavering devotion to the cult's cause. The chronic stress can weaken an individual's critical thinking abilities, facilitating a more complete adoption of the cult's belief system. In understanding psychological control and thought reform, it is critical to recognize the dynamic and insidious nature of these processes. The techniques employed by cults to reform thought are multifaceted and interrelated, often implemented incrementally to mask their coercive intent. As these methods coalesce, they weave a tight web of control that can deeply alter a person's worldview, sense of self, and capacity for autonomous decision-making. Education and awareness of these tactics are vital for both prevention and recovery from such environments. 7.4 The role of charismatic leadership. The role of charismatic leadership within the context of cultic organizations is a critical factor in understanding how coercive control is exercised. Charismatic leaders possess an exceptional set of traits that enable them to exert powerful influence over followers. Typically, these leaders are highly skilled communicators, able to articulate a vision that resonates with the needs, hopes, and aspirations of potential adherents. Their personal magnetism, combined with the impression of possessing higher knowledge or authority, can make them particularly persuasive. These individuals often present themselves as possessing unique insights or supernatural gifts, which set them apart from ordinary individuals and establish their position at the apex of the group's hierarchy. A charismatic leader utilizes a complex blend of emotional and social tools to bind followers to the group's ideology. One of these tools is the cultivation of an us versus them mentality. By framing external society as fundamentally flawed or hostile, the leader creates a sense of shared struggle and purpose within the group. This binary worldview simplifies complex societal issues, which can be appealing to individuals seeking clear answers to life's uncertainties. It also fosters a sense of community and solidarity among members, further strengthening the leader's influence by positioning the group as a refuge against external threats. Another key aspect of charismatic leadership is the establishment of a dependency relationship between the leader and the followers. The leader often positions themselves as the sole source of truth and wisdom, which makes followers increasingly reliant on their guidance for decision-making. This dependency is often established through a pattern of rewards and punishments that reinforce the desired behavior within the group. The promise of spiritual salvation, personal enlightenment, or some form of exclusive knowledge can serve as a potent reward, while social ostracization, public shaming, or the threat of existential loss can act as effective punishments. In many cultic organizations, the charismatic leader's influence is perpetuated and magnified through the creation of a mythology that surrounds them. Stories of the leader's extraordinary experiences, divine encounters, or prophetic visions are shared among followers, serving not only to legitimize the leader's authority, but also to build a narrative that discourages skepticism and critical thinking. This mythology can become an integral part of the group's identity, often recorded and retold as a means of indoctrination for new members. Charismatic leaders may also exploit personal vulnerabilities to consolidate their control. Individuals who are experiencing periods of transition, such as those coping with loss or seeking purpose, are particularly susceptible to the leader's appeal. By offering a sense of belonging and a structured worldview, the leader provides a solution to the individual's existential dilemmas while simultaneously increasing the individual's allegiance to the group. This process of bonding is critical, as it makes it more difficult for followers to leave the group or question the leader's authority later on. To maintain their position, charismatic leaders often employ tactics of isolation. By limiting followers' access to alternative viewpoints and external support networks, leaders ensure that the group's ideology remains unchallenged. This isolation can take physical forms, such as living in a commune or compound, or psychological forms, such as instilling distrust towards non-members, including family and friends. The more isolated the members are, the more they rely on the group and its leader for social interaction, information, and validation, further entrenching the leader's control. The manipulation of language is another tool used by charismatic leaders to control their followers. Special terms, phrases, or slogans unique to the group can change the way individuals think about their experiences and their environment. This specialized language serves both to unite the members and to create barriers to understanding by those outside of the group, reinforcing group identity and further isolating followers from external influences. Charismatic leadership in cults is often characterized by an autocratic decision-making style. The leader's pronouncements are considered unquestionably correct, and alternative perspectives are either disregarded or actively suppressed. This reinforcement of the leader's infallibility can create an environment where questioning or dissent can lead to severe consequences, both socially and psychologically, for group members. By consolidating decision-making authority, the leader ensures that their strategic vision and objectives are pursued without interference. It is essential to note that while charismatic leaders play a pivotal role in the establishment and maintenance of coercive control in cults, not all uses of charisma in leadership are negative. In mainstream society, charismatic individuals can inspire positive change and foster success in various contexts such as in business, politics, or social movements. The defining factor in cultic scenarios is the fusion of charisma with manipulative and controlling behaviors that ultimately strip followers of their autonomy and critical thinking abilities. Finally, the perpetuation of charismatic leadership within cults often extends beyond the lifespan of the individual leader. This is achieved through the establishment of rituals, traditions, and sometimes succession plans that imbue the leadership role with a sense of sanctity and continuity. The death or departure of a charismatic leader does not necessarily dissolve the group's power structure. Instead, the established ideology and the internal systems designed to reinforce the leader's control can maintain the group's cohesion and functionality, even in the absence of its original leader. 7.5 Isolation, Dependency, and Control in Cults. Cults often employ a range of psychological tactics to maintain control over their members. One of the key strategies is the orchestrated use of isolation, which serves to sever individuals from their previous support networks and influences. This isolation is multifaceted, involving physical separation from the outside world, as well as emotional and intellectual detachment. It begins subtly, with members encouraged to spend increasing amounts of time with the group and its activities, and can escalate to the point where contact with non-members, including family and friends, is highly restricted or cut off altogether. Isolation is purposely designed to foster a sense of dependency among cult members. As individuals become more immersed in the cult environment, their reliance on group leaders and the social framework of the cult increases. Their worldview narrows, aligning with the ideology propagated by the leadership. This dependency is solidified through a combination of restricted access to information, strong group pressure to conform, and a reward and punishment system that reinforces the cult's values and behaviors. Members who question or resist the established norms may face ostracism or punishment, further entrenching the fear of isolation and the perceived need for compliance. Cult leaders typically establish themselves as the ultimate authority, positioning themselves as the exclusive providers of truth, knowledge, and salvation. They may claim to have special insights or connections to a higher power, and thus their directives are not to be questioned. This authority often extends to the minutiae of personal life, controlling aspects such as appearance, diet, financial decisions, and interpersonal relationships. The leader's influence can become so pervasive that members may feel they cannot make everyday decisions without guidance from the group. Control within cults extends beyond behavioral regulations to include thought and emotion. Thought reform techniques are used to align members' thinking with the group's ideology. These may include prolonged sessions of indoctrination, repetitive chanting or singing, and public confessionals that serve to break down individual critical thinking skills. Members may be made to feel guilty for past actions or thoughts, reinforcing the need to adhere to the cult's teachings to attain redemption. In this way, members' internal lives become regulated, with self-censorship and an overriding desire to please the leader or group becoming commonplace. The dependency created by isolation and control is also economic, as many cults require members to donate a significant portion of their finances or to work for the group without pay. This economic entanglement serves to bind the individual to the cult, as leaving would result in not only a loss of social support, but also financial insecurity. Cults may manage all aspects of their members' finances, including the confiscation of personal assets, rendering members economically dependent on the group for their material needs. This loss of financial independence acts as yet another chain keeping members tied to the group. Social dynamics within cults contribute to the maintenance of control. Relationships with fellow cult members are encouraged, while relationships with outsiders are viewed with suspicion or outright hostility. Social bonding with other cult members may lead to a sense of family or community that feels integral to one's identity and sense of belonging. The cult's collective identity supersedes individual identities, and loyalty to the group becomes paramount. Peer pressure reinforces adherence to the group's norms, and any deviation is met with social sanctions, intensifying the fear of ostracization and the desire to conform. Genuine emotional bonds can form between cult members, and this can be skillfully exploited by the leadership. Those who question the cult or its leaders may not only face personal consequences, but may also be made to feel that they are betraying their friends within the group. This sense of betrayal is particularly powerful because the loss of these relationships would mean isolation not only from the familiar societal structures of the outside world, but also from the primary source of social interaction within the cult. Cults often attribute negative events or emotions experienced by members to external influences or personal failings, rather than to the cult's doctrine or practices. This creates a narrative in which the cult and its leadership remain unimpeachable, while any problems are the fault of the member or hostile outside forces. Members may be told that feelings of unhappiness or unease are the result of insufficient faith or commitment, thus redirecting the blame inward and away from the cult's potentially harmful practices. Information control is a vital aspect of maintaining the group's isolated state. Members may be discouraged or forbidden from accessing media, literature, or other sources of information that could contradict or challenge the cult's teachings. Controlling the flow of information serves to encompass members within the cult's constructed reality, where the only truths are those that the cult sanctions. By limiting exposure to differing perspectives, the cult minimizes the risk of members encountering information that might catalyze doubt or critical thought. Exiting such a highly controlled environment is exceedingly difficult. Not only must individuals contend with the loss of social support and the potential backlash from within the group, but they may also face significant practical barriers. Without outside social connections, financial resources, or even basic life skills that may have atrophied during their time in the cult, leaving can seem insurmountable. The psychological conditioning that cults instill creates deep-seated fears and doubts about the outside world, which can persist long after a member has physically left the environment. Isolation, dependency, and control in cults are not incidental, but rather are systematic and deliberate strategies for maintaining the group's cohesion and the leadership's power. By examining these tactics, we can better understand how cults operate and how they exert such a powerful hold over their members. Recognizing the signs of coercive control can aid in the prevention of exploitation and assist those seeking to help individuals affected by such environments. 7.6 Exit Counseling and Recovery for Former Members. Exit counseling, also known as cult deprogramming, is a process designed to free individuals from the influence of coercive control as exerted by cults and similar groups. It offers psychological support to members who have left or are in the process of leaving a cult, aiming to aid their return to independent thinking and decision-making. The process involves structured intervention by mental health professionals, ex-cult members, or specialists in the study of cults. This intervention is built around clear communication, non-coercive techniques, and respect for the individual's freedom of choice. It should not be confused with the more confrontational and ethically questionable approach of deprogramming that was more common in the past. The process often starts with dialogue to establish trust and rapport. Counselors may first educate former members about methods of control that could have influenced them, providing a framework for individuals to recognize these techniques in their past experiences. Understanding thought reform techniques can foster a sense of empowerment over previously confusing or suppressed events. This educational phase is instrumental in distancing the individual's identity from the group, helping to weaken the group's psychological hold. Recovery for former cult members can be a protracted journey and extends beyond the initial exit counseling sessions. Extended support networks often play a crucial role in the recovery process. These networks may include support groups, therapy sessions with mental health professionals who specialize in cult recovery, as well as reintegration programs. Long-term support is vital because individuals may face a host of psychological issues post-exit, such as depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder. During recovery, ex-members may struggle with the loss of community and a sense of belonging that the cult previously provided. To address this, exit counseling also aims to reconnect individuals with their pre-cult identity and relationships. Counselors work to strengthen the individual's relationships with friends and family members who are outside the influence of the cult. Strengthening these external relationships helps to replace the social support network that was once offered by the group. In some cases, former members might experience guilt or blame themselves for the actions they undertook while under the influence of the cult. Dealing with these feelings is a fundamental part of the healing process, where practitioners help individuals understand that their actions were the result of extensive manipulation rather than a reflection of their true self. Emphasizing personal forgiveness and self-compassion, exit counselors encourage former members to acknowledge their own victimization without dwelling on self-recrimination. Another critical aspect of exit counseling is addressing the distorted worldview imparted by cult ideologies. Many former cult members have to confront and recalibrate their entire understanding of reality and moral values. Counselors support them in this endeavor by promoting critical thinking and exposure to alternative viewpoints. Re-educating ex-members about norms and behaviors in mainstream society can also help correct any warped perceptions fostered by the cult. To aid in the practical aspects of reintegration, assistance with employment, education, and financial planning is often necessary. Many cults may require members to relinquish their financial independence, leaving them underprepared for the demands of managing personal affairs after they have left. Counseling programs may provide or connect individuals with resources and mentors who can assist with practical life skills and financial literacy to foster a renewed sense of autonomy. The psychological manipulation that underlies coercive control in cults can lead to complex trauma, which takes time and specialized treatment to address. It is not unusual for individuals to require several years of therapy after exit counseling to fully recover. Therapeutic interventions might include cognitive behavioral therapy, expressive arts therapies, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, depending on the specific needs of the individual. Exit counselors and recovery professionals must remain aware of the risks associated with dependency in the counselor-client relationship. Because former cult members may have been conditioned to be highly dependent upon the group or its leader, there is a potential for transference of this dependency onto the helping professional. Therefore, a key goal of the exit counselor is to promote self-sufficiency and the ability to trust one's own judgment rather than replacing the cult's control with another form of external dependence. Lastly, recovery work must adapt to the unique circumstances and experiences of each individual. Cults vary widely in their beliefs, practices, and levels of control. Consequently, a one-size-fits-all approach to exit counseling and recovery is inadequate. Personalized care plans, sensitivity to the individual's cultural background, and open lines of communication between the client and counselor establish the necessary foundation for effective recovery. Exit counseling and recovery for former cult members must be thoughtfully approached and tailored to the individual's experience of coercive control. By providing education, emotional support, reintegration assistance, and long-term recovery strategies, professionals can facilitate the challenging journey from cult influence back to autonomy and personal empowerment. The ultimate goal of exit counseling is not only to help individuals disentangle from the grips of the cult, but also to enable them to thrive as independent, resilient members of society. 7.7 Legal and Ethical Considerations in Cult Dynamics. The interplay between cults and coercive control is complex, with various legal and ethical considerations that need to be understood. In legal terms, a cult is not necessarily considered illicit. However, when coercive control is used to manipulate and exploit members, it can become a matter of legal concern. The legal framework surrounding cults is rooted in the principle of freedom of religion, which is protected by constitutions in numerous jurisdictions. Consequently, the challenge arises in distinguishing between legitimate religious practice and coercive practices that infringe on individual rights. One significant legal consideration relates to consent. Within the dynamics of a cult, the concept of consent becomes problematic when coercion is at play. Consent obtained through manipulation does not meet the standard of informed and voluntary agreement. This is further complicated by the fact that cult members might assert they are acting of their own free will, even when evidence suggests that they are under undue influence. As such, legal systems often struggle with cases where coercion within cults is subtle and psychological, rather than overt and physical. The issue of harm is another legal aspect that cannot be overlooked. Physical harm within cults, such as abuse or neglect, is clearly actionable under the law. Nonetheless, psychological harm can be harder to quantify and prove, despite the potential for long-lasting effects on victims. Emotional abuse and psychological manipulation are types of harm that the legal system has been slower to recognize and address effectively. Interestingly, some legal systems are evolving to include recognition of psychological harm, but there is still considerable variance across jurisdictions in how this harm is approached and penalized. Furthermore, the legality of cult activities can intersect with a range of other legal areas, including labor laws, immigration, family law, and even taxation. For example, cults may be scrutinized for violations of labor laws if they compel members to work in conditions that fail to meet legal standards. Family law can come into play when cults influence the structure and dynamics of family relationships, particularly in custody disputes where allegations of indoctrination or familial alienation are involved. Meanwhile, immigration issues may arise when cults transport members across borders under deceptive pretenses, and tax considerations are relevant when examining the financial dealings of organizations claiming religious charity status. Ethically, there is a tension between respecting religious autonomy and intervening to protect individuals from harm. Cults often present themselves as altruistic communities, but they can foster environments where critical thinking is discouraged and conformity is strictly enforced. Ethical scrutiny increases when cults disrupt family bonds, enforce isolation, or encourage behaviors that are against members' previously held values or interests. Here, the ethical imperative to respect personal autonomy seems to conflict with the duty to protect individuals from exploitative practices. Professionals in various fields encounter ethical dilemmas when dealing with cult members. Mental health workers, for example, may face confidentiality concerns when they perceive a threat to their clients' well-being due to cult involvement. Similarly, legal professionals can find themselves navigating a tightrope when representing clients who may be compromised by cult membership, balancing their duty to advocate for their client with the need to address potentially harmful coercion. Additionally, there are profound ethical questions regarding intervention. Direct intervention in cult dynamics, such as deprogramming or forced removal from a cult environment, carries its own set of ethical challenges. While such measures might be taken with the intent to help individuals regain autonomy, they can also be seen as a breach of personal liberty and an imposition of one's beliefs onto others. Moreover, the effectiveness of such interventions is not consistently supported by empirical evidence and poses a risk of further psychological trauma. Preventative measures also raise ethical concerns, particularly when it comes to education and raising awareness about the risks associated with cults. While education is a pivotal tool for prevention, it must be wielded without encroaching on freedom of speech or legitimate religious expression. Educative efforts need to be carefully designed to inform without bias and empower individuals to make informed choices, rather than provoke unwarranted fear or prejudice against certain groups. Lastly, the ethical responsibility extends to society at large, including media representation and public discourse on the topic of cults. Sensationalized media portrayals can contribute to a social climate of misunderstanding and stigmatization. It is crucial for discussions surrounding cults and coercive control to be conducted responsibly, with journalism and public commentary adhering to accuracy and a respectful tone to avoid perpetuating myths or inciting discrimination. Legal and ethical considerations in the context of cult dynamics are both wide-ranging and intricate. It is essential for those involved in these issues to balance rights to religious freedom and association with the protection of individuals from harm. Legal and ethical frameworks must evolve to address the multifaceted nature of coercion in cults while ensuring that any measures taken are proportional and respectful of individual liberties. The ongoing challenge lies in crafting responses that are sensitive to the complexities of personal belief and autonomy, while firmly upholding fundamental human rights and dignity. 7.8 Cultic structures in everyday organizations. A cultic structure refers to an organizational pattern characterized by a strict hierarchy, controlling leadership, and intense allegiance from its members, aspects that can unfortunately be found in various degrees within some everyday organizations. Such structures are typically underpinned by persuasive and manipulative tactics that are used intentionally or inadvertently to maintain control over group members, aligning them with the goals and visions of the leadership. The mechanism of control operates on the vital human need for belonging and significance, which can make coercive tactics particularly effective. Recognizing these structures in everyday organizations is central to understanding how individuals can potentially be manipulated, and how these practices might be mitigated. The opacity of decision-making processes is a common feature of organizations with cultic tendencies. Leaders may make decisions in a manner that lacks transparency, providing little to no rationale to their subordinates. This absence of clarity fosters a dependence on leadership for direction and reinforces the perceived authority of the leadership. It inhibits the development of independent decision-making among members and keeps them reliant on commands from above. The subsequent lack of autonomy not only suppresses individual agency, but also leads to an environment where questioning and dissent are discouraged or outright penalized. Another aspect often witnessed in cultic structures within organizations is the use of loaded language. This involves the adoption of a complex jargon or a set of catchphrases that are distinctive to the organization, creating an in-group language that separates members from outsiders. This language serves to bond members to the organization and its cause, while subtly reinforcing the us versus them mentality that is a hallmark of cultic groups. The colloquialisms become part of the group's identity, shaping thought patterns in line with group ideology and making it harder for members to relate to or integrate with non-members. Recruitment and socialization practices in organizations with cultic structures often involve manipulating emotions to create strong bonds and commitment to the group. Newcomers might be showered with attention and praise, a technique sometimes referred to as love bombing. This initial overture of acceptance and companionship can be overwhelming and is designed to foster a sense of indebtedness and connectivity to the group. Down the line, this technique serves to entrap members emotionally, ensuring loyalty even when the organizational demands become excessive. Central to cultic structures is the exaltation of the leadership, which may be manifested in a variety of ways. Leaders may position themselves as possessing a unique vision or special knowledge that is critical to the group's success, thus warranting their unquestioned authority. This can cultivate a misguided reverence among members, who may attribute almost infallible qualities to the leadership, leading them to follow directives without critical assessment. The venerated status of the leaders makes challenging them not only difficult, but also inconceivable for many members. Conformity pressure is a defining characteristic of cultic organizations. Such pressure is not limited to overt directives. It can also stem from subtle cues and expectations that signal the desired behavior. Members learn to model their behavior according to the group norms, which are often skewed to prioritize the organization's objectives over individual welfare. Dissenters who express varying opinions can be ostracized or punished, implicitly signaling to others the risks associated with nonconformity. The resulting groupthink stifles innovation and can create an unhealthy, homogeneous environment wherein independent thinking is not just undervalued but actively suppressed. Dependency is engineered in cultic organizations through various mechanisms, one being control over resources and information. Members may find that access to opportunities and knowledge within the organization is conditional upon their compliance with the group norms and leadership's expectations. This creates a power dynamic where individuals are unwillingly tied to the organization for their professional or personal advancement. Over time, the fear of losing these resources can become a significant factor in a member's compliance, regardless of their feelings or beliefs about the organization's actions or goals. The escalation of commitment within cultic organizational structures is another manipulative tactic. Members are often gradually introduced to the more extreme demands and ideologies of the group. By this incremental approach, what was initially unacceptable becomes normalized. Members who have invested time, effort, and resources into the organization may continue to do so to justify past commitments, even in the face of rising doubts or in the recognition of manipulative tactics. This sunk cost fallacy can keep them tied to an organization long after it serves their best interests. To maintain influence, cultic organizations might also manipulate members' perceptions of the outside world. Through controlled information and selective messaging, members are led to believe that the organization's perspective is the only valid or righteous one. Alternate viewpoints are discredited or portrayed as threats, which reinforces the organization's narrative and justifies its insularity. This insular worldview serves to keep members loyal and dependent, fearing what lies beyond the confines of the organization. The use of sanctions, both positive and negative, is prevalent in maintaining cultic structures. Positive sanctions, such as promotions, praise, and increased responsibility, incentivize alignment with the organization's goals and conformity to its rules. Negative sanctions, on the other hand, involve punishments such as demotion, social isolation, or expulsion for those who dissent or underperform according to the organization's standards. By leveraging these rewards and punishments, the organization ensures that members are motivated to adhere to the desired behaviors out of fear or aspiration, or both. Lastly, the exit process from a cultic organization is often fraught with difficulties. Members who attempt to leave may be met with manipulation tactics designed to induce guilt, fear, or doubt, thereby deterring their departure. Additionally, those who do exit may be vilified or shamed, a tactic that serves to dissuade others from following suit and portrays the organization as the victim of betrayal or ingratitude. The challenging exit process not only traps current members, but also serves as a stark reminder of the costs associated with dissent and independence within the organization. Cultic structures within everyday organizations are sustained through a complex interplay of psychological manipulation, control of resources, and social pressures. The recognition of these manipulative structures is crucial for both individuals and society, as it helps foster awareness and empowers people to advocate for healthier and more ethical organizational practices. Developing an understanding of how these structures operate is the first step in cultivating resilience against coercive control and promoting an environment where autonomy and critical thinking are valued and preserved. 7.9 The social and psychological appeal of cults. Cults possess a complex lure that often goes unnoticed until someone is deeply involved. The appeal of cults can be dissected into social and psychological facets, each playing a fundamental role in the recruitment and retention of members. Acknowledging the multifaceted allure is essential in understanding how cults operate and why they can be so influential. Socially, cults provide a sense of belonging that might be lacking in a person's life. Individuals often find themselves drawn to groups where they feel accepted unconditionally. Cult environments purport to offer a close-knit community that supports its members in ways they may not have experienced before. This sense of community can be especially appealing for those who feel isolated or outcast in their daily lives. The promise of an understanding and supportive group can be a powerful motivator to join and stay within a cult. Psychologically, cults tap into deep desires for meaning and purpose. Individuals may be enticed by a compelling ideology or belief system presented by the cult, particularly if it seems to provide answers to complex life questions. The structure and certainty offered by cult doctrines can be comforting to those who are experiencing uncertainties in their personal lives. Cults often present a black and white worldview that simplifies the complexities of reality, and this binary thinking can be attractive to those looking for clear direction and meaning. Additionally, cults leverage the need for personal growth and transformation. Leaders frequently claim to possess the exclusive pathway to enlightenment, self-improvement, or salvation. The opportunity to fundamentally change one's life trajectory can be an irresistible proposition for individuals seeking drastic personal development. This transformative promise is another key element in the allure of cults. The use of manipulation tactics is also central to the appeal of cults. These tactics are designed to influence individuals on an emotional level, often bypassing rational thought. Examples include the love bombing of new recruits, where an individual is showered with positive attention and affection by cult members. This overwhelming positive reinforcement can create an emotional high that reinforces the individual's decision to join the group. Control within cults is gradually asserted through a combination of peer pressure and charismatic leadership. Individuals may initially be drawn in by the magnetic personality of a cult leader. A leader's personal authority and conviction can make the group's ideology seem more credible. As individuals become further engaged with the cult, peer pressure reinforces the norms and expectations of the group. With communal living or frequent meetings, there is little room for dissent or individual thought, further deepening the social bonds that tie members to the cult. Power dynamics within groups also contribute to the appeal of cults. Hierarchical structures can create clear pathways for progression, appealing to those who desire status and recognition. The promise of advancement or access to exclusive knowledge can motivate individuals to deepen their commitment to the cult. Climbing the ranks within a cult can become an addictive pursuit, reinforcing one's allegiance to the cause and leader. The reliance on authoritative texts or doctrines helps preserve the cultic appeal over time. Members are typically encouraged, or even mandated, to study certain materials that reinforce the cult's teachings. This continuous reinforcement creates a loop that validates the cult's philosophy and minimizes outside ideas. Such intense focus on a particular set of ideas can lead to an echo chamber effect where dissenting opinions are dismissed as invalid. Emotional experiences within cults also play a significant role in their appeal. Cults often create intense collective experiences that can lead to emotional bonding among members. Whether through group rituals, singing, or shared confessions, these experiences contribute to a heightened emotional connection. This shared emotional journey often translates into strong loyalty to the group and its cause. The use of fear and existential threat is another psychological strategy used by cults to appeal to potential members. By framing the outside world as dangerous or misguided, cults can make their controlled environments seem safe and righteous by comparison. The crafting of an us versus them mentality pits the cult against the world, making its members feel like part of an enlightened minority fighting against a corrupt majority. This dichotomy can be difficult to resist for those searching for a clear sense of identity and purpose. The social and psychological appeals of cults are multifarious and intertwined. Cults offer a compelling blend of community, purpose, transformation, and emotional experience that can fulfill a range of human needs. Understanding these appeals is crucial for recognizing the potency of cults and the reasons individuals may find them attractive. This understanding is also foundational for formulating strategies to support those who may be at risk of or are trying to break free from the influence of cultic groups. 7.10 Supporting victims of cultic abuse. Supporting victims of cultic abuse requires an understanding that the experiences of these individuals are both unique and profoundly challenging. The recovery process involves addressing a wide range of psychological, social, and sometimes physical effects that stem from their experiences. Often, cultic abuse involves a systematic breakdown of an individual's sense of self, autonomy, and reality, making the journey to recovery a complex endeavor. Therefore, support for these individuals must be multifaceted and tailored to their specific needs as they work through the trauma of their experiences. One of the initial steps in supporting victims is the establishment of a safe environment. It is essential for victims to feel physically and emotionally secure in order to begin the process of unlearning the manipulative patterns ingrained by the cult. A safe space also serves as a grounding backdrop where individuals can explore and express their emotions without fear of judgment or retribution. Supportive networks, whether through friends, family, or dedicated organizations, can provide this sense of stability and understanding, which is crucial for the initial phases of recovery. An integral part of the support process is the validation of the victim's experiences. Due to the gaslighting and manipulation techniques employed by cults, victims may question their perceptions and memories. External affirmation that their experiences were real and abusive is critical in helping to reconstruct their understanding of reality. This process of validation should be ongoing, as victims may encounter doubts and setbacks on their path to reclaiming their sense of truth and self. Encouraging autonomy and decision-making is another fundamental aspect of supporting victims. Cults often exercise control over the minutest details of an individual's life, resulting in a diminished capacity to make decisions independently. Supporting individuals in recognizing and exercising their own agency is a crucial component in rebuilding their self-efficacy and independence. This encouragement should be patient and free from pressure, allowing the individual to set their own pace in rediscovering their capacity for self-governance. Psychoeducation is a valuable tool in supporting victims. This involves teaching them about the tactics of manipulation and control used by cults, which often aligns with the broader concepts of psychological coercion. Understanding these methods can empower victims to recognize the abusive patterns they were subjected to, making sense of their experiences within a larger framework of coercive control tactics. Professional therapy or counseling, ideally with a practitioner experienced in cultic abuse, is often necessary. Mental health professionals can provide individualized support that addresses the complex issues emanating from cult involvement. This may include treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD), anxiety, depression, or other mental health conditions brought on or exacerbated by their cultic abuse. Therapy can also offer strategies for coping with triggers and rebuilding a healthy identity outside of the cultic dynamics. Support groups can play a pivotal role by connecting victims to others who have had similar experiences. These groups can provide a sense of community and belonging that was lost or exploited within the cult. They also offer opportunities to share stories and coping strategies, fostering a collective healing process that can be instrumental in the recovery journey. Legal support may also be necessary for some victims, especially when there has been financial exploitation or where there are matters of personal freedom involved, such as child custody or legal harassment. Assistance in navigating the legal system can empower victims to assert their rights and seek justice for the abuses they have endured. Reintegration into broader society is another critical step. Victims of cultic abuse may have been isolated from the world outside their cult for extended periods, and they may find it challenging to adjust to societal norms and expectations. Supportive networks can provide guidance, practical assistance, and patience as these individuals learn to navigate life outside of the cult's influence, which may include finding employment, housing, and developing new social ties. Support must respect the individual's pace of recovery. There should be no rush to move on or dismiss the depth of the person's experience. The time required to heal from cultic abuse varies widely, and supporters ought to be cognizant of the need for patience and the absence of deadlines for the individual's healing process. Lastly, addressing the spiritual or existential aspects of cult recovery can be important, particularly since many cults manipulate spiritual beliefs for control. Providing resources or referrals to trusted spiritual advisors, support groups, or workshops that allow for the exploration and reconstruction of personal beliefs can help in restoring the individual's sense of meaning and purpose. To effectively support victims of cultic abuse, an ecosystem of support encompassing personal connections, professional help, education, legal assistance, and respect for the individual's recovery timeline is essential. Careful attention to the multifaceted nature of the victim's journey towards autonomy and healing will yield the best outcomes in terms of long-term recovery and well-being.